We're going to talk about one of the most important things to know about ASL because you'll use it over and over and over and over. We're going to look at the 5 parameters of ASL. So you might be thinking, what's a parameter? ASL has parameters. What even is that? So let's actually define parameters first, and then we'll talk about the parameters of ASL. So a parameter is a measurable factor. It's a boundary or limit that shows how something must be done. There are parameters in a lot of things, and there are parameters in all languages because all languages have rules for production, whether that's pronunciation in spoken language or whatnot. And they also, all languages have rules for language usage. Like you can't use one word one way. There are rules, there are parameters in how you produce and use language. So all signs in ASL are made up of 5 parameters. Getting the parameters right gives the sign meaning and it makes it accurate. The parameters make the sign understandable, just like in spoken English, right? If I say something the way it's supposed to be said, you know what I mean. You understand it. But if I don't, it doesn't make sense or it isn't used right. So here's an example in English. If I want to say boat, but I pronounce it bought, then I've changed one of the parameters of that word. I've changed one of the vowel sounds, right? And when I do that, it actually gives it a different meaning. If I change the parameters of boat enough, such as saying blit, now I've given the word no meaning, right? I've changed enough of the parameters that now it doesn't mean what I want it to, but it also doesn't mean anything at all. You can do that in ASL too, right? You might get one little part wrong or enough that it doesn't mean anything. The 5 parameters of ASL are the 5 parts of a sign, the 5 things that give the sign meaning. When you sign all 5 parameters correctly, you are signing what you mean to sign. Parameters in ASL are just like phonemes in English. A phoneme is the smallest part of a word, which has no meaning by itself, like a T or an A or a C. Then you combine the phonemes in English and in a lot of other spoken languages to make something that means something, which is a word or a morpheme. So if you take the little parts, all the phonemes like the C, A, and the T, and then you combine it in a certain way that means something, you've made a word like cat. So that's how it works in English. It's similar in ASL. You take little parts to make a sign that means something. Knowing the 5 parameters of ASL will help you self-assess your signs. You can self-correct them as needed. You can double check yourself and your signs to make sure you're signing all the parameters right. So here are the 5 parameters of ASL. I also call it how to sign what you mean to. Okay, there's hand shape, palm orientation, location, movement, and expression or non-manual signs. So first, let's look at the first one I mentioned there, hand shape, okay? Hand shape is the difference between car and which. So let me back up a little bit so I can sign these for you. So here's car and here's which. They look about the same, don't they? But they have a different hand shape, and changing that one parameter changes the meaning. So let's look at an example of palm orientation. Palm orientation is the difference between the sign for good and the sign for bad. Watch this. Good, bad. Everything is the same. It's the same hand shape. It's the same movement, but I've changed the palm orientation. Good, bad, which also can be signed, by the way, good and bad with just one hand. All right, now let's look at location. That's the 3rd parameter of signs. So location means where it is. Is it by your eyes? Is it on your shoulder? Is it in the space out in front of you? That's the location of the sign. So location is the difference between the signs for onion and apple. So I'm going to have the same hand shape, the same palm orientation, but the location is going to change. Here's the sign for onion, and here's the sign for apple. It's just the location. Another of the five parameters of a sign is movement. So you notice when I did onion and apple, it had the same movement. It was a little twisty, right? A little twisty. So let's look at this sign. Now I'm going to encourage you to not, or this parameter, I'm going to encourage you to not try to remember the signs that I'm signing here, because these are so close, you're going to get them mixed up forever. So just look at what I'm signing here and go, oh, that's interesting. I understand what you're talking about movement, but don't try to remember them right now. We will learn them later in an order where you'll be able to remember them. If you try to remember them all now, you're going to mix them all up. Okay, so movement is the difference between these four signs. They're super close. Ready? Have, animal, tired, and young. Okay, it's the same hand shape. It's the same palm orientation. It's the same location. It's only the movement that makes a difference. Have, animal, tired, and young. All right, so movement is an important parameter. They're all important, but an important parameter of ASL. Okay, here's the last one. So facial expression and non-manual signs. So facial expression and non-manual signs are really similar, but they actually have different functions. So they are a little bit different, but we kind of group them together as far as a parameter of a sign. Okay, here's the difference. Facial expressions convey the meaning you intend. Facial expression is the equivalent of voice inflection in spoken language. So think about this. If I say, I'm really happy today, you're thinking I'm not, right? So what I do with my voice, even though I said the word happy, what I did with my voice makes you think I'm not. It's exactly the same when you sign happy. You just don't have voice inflection, right? Instead, your voice inflection is your facial expression. So the sign happy has to be accompanied by a happy facial expression, because if it isn't, it doesn't really mean happy. Just like when I just barely said, I'm really happy. It didn't mean that I was really happy. Okay, so facial expression, so important in ASL, because it actually gives meaning to what you're saying. If I say, I'm happy, I'm being sarcastic, or there's a problem or something, right? If I say, oh, I'm so happy, I'm happy you're here, I will look happy if I mean happy. Okay, non-manual signs. You may see them also called non-manual markers. I like non-manual signs, and that term is shortened as NMS a lot of the time. So non-manual signs, or NMS, convey grammatical information, not just the voice inflection like a facial expression like we were just talking about, but actual grammar. Okay, it changes the meaning of a word. Okay, so non-manual signs are the difference between except and especially. So watch this. The sign is exactly the same. If you're trying to sign except or especially, they're exactly the same. But if you think about it, those two words are basically complete opposites, right? If I say, I like ice cream except chocolate, that's completely different from saying, I like ice cream especially chocolate. So the difference in that grammar, that meaning of this sign, is on my face. It's a non-manual sign. Okay, so if I said, I like ice cream except, I would probably do something like this, except chocolate. If I like ice cream, oh, especially chocolate, it's going to be more like a positive than a negative. Okay, so that's also the difference. The non-manual sign is also the difference between not sad, sad, and very, very sad. Like if this is a sign for sad, okay? So if I say, I'm not sad, that's actually grammar. That's changing the meaning of this sign. This is sad, not sad, okay? Now, sad, and now very, very sad, terribly sad, all right? Another example of the use of NMS and how it changes the meaning is understand and don't understand. It's exactly the same sign. It's exactly the same sign. Only understand and don't understand. Okay, so the non-manual sign is very important. It's not optional. You have to use it to sign it, or what you're trying to say doesn't mean the same thing. All right, that is non-manual signs. So let's review. What are the 5 parameters of ASL? We had hand shape, palm orientation, location, where it is, right? Movement, how the sign moves, and facial expressions and non-manual signs, or NMS. So now you're ready. You know the 5 parameters of a sign, and you're ready to create signs and make sure that they're produced correctly so that you know that you're expressing the right meaning. The 5 parameters of a sign help you say what you mean to say.